My friends, tonight I invite you to see God not as some distant power beyond your reach, but as the very essence of your being, your own wonderful human imagination. The secret of creation has been hidden in plain sight, whispered in scripture, declared in parables, yet overlooked by those who seek God in temples made with hands. I tell you, God is your imagination. And the key to all creation, to all transformation, is found within you. Consider the words of scripture, I am that I am. This is the eternal name of God. Not a being separate from you, but the very awareness within you. When you say, I am, you are declaring the presence of God. Whatever you attach to this sacred name, whether wealth or poverty, joy or despair, you bring forth into your world. God is your imagination. This is the great revelation, hidden in plain sight. The truth that has been overlooked for centuries, the power that creates and sustains the universe is not separate from you, but is woven into the very fabric of your being. When you seek God, you are seeking your own wonderful human imagination, the very faculty that gives life to your dreams, your desires, and your experiences. It is through this divine imagination that all things come into existence. And it is through this same power that you shape the course of your own reality. The world has long conditioned humanity to believe that God is an external force, a being residing in some distant realm, dictating the affairs of life from afar. Yet, Scripture tells us otherwise. When Moses stood before the burning bush and asked for the name of God, the response was simple yet profound. I am that I am. This declaration was not just a name but a principle, a statement of being. God is not a being separate from you, but the very awareness that declares, I am. This is the divine presence within you, the consciousness that gives life to all things. Consider for a moment the power of your own imagination. Every invention, every work of art, every great achievement in human history first existed as an image in the mind of its creator. Before a building is erected, it is first conceived as a vision in the architect's mind. Before a book is written, it is first imagined by the author. Nothing exists in the world of form that did not first exist in the world of thought. This is the undeniable proof that imagination is the true creative force. If imagination is the source of all creation, then you must recognize that your own thoughts and mental images are not idle or insignificant. Every moment you are creating, whether consciously or unconsciously. The images you entertain, the assumptions you persist in, and the emotions you dwell upon are shaping your reality in ways you may not even realize. You are told in Scripture, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This is not mere poetry, it is the fundamental law of creation. The state you habitually occupy in your imagination is the state that will manifest in your world. When you begin to see your imagination as God, you take responsibility for your own life. No longer can you blame circumstances, fate, or external forces for your condition. You realize that everything you experience is an outpicturing of your own consciousness. If you wish to change your life, you must first change the way you think and feel about yourself. You must begin to see yourself as the person you desire to be and persist in that assumption until it becomes your reality. This is why it is said, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is not mere blind belief, but the inner conviction that what you imagine is already a reality. When you assume a state in your imagination and persist in that assumption, you are exercising the power of God within you. The outer world, being nothing more than a reflection of the inner world, must conform to the image held within. There is no limit to what you can create when you understand that your imagination is God. Wealth, health, love, success, these are not things to be chased or struggled for, but states of consciousness to be assumed. The moment you claim them as your own in imagination, they begin to take shape in the physical world. The key is persistence. The world may show you evidence to the contrary, but if you remain faithful to your vision, reality must bend to your assumption. When you awaken to this truth, life becomes a joyful creation rather than a series of random events. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances because you realize that you are the operant power. You are not a victim of fate, but the creator of your own destiny. The only question that remains is, what are you imagining? For as you imagine, so shall you become. Imagination creates reality. This is not merely an abstract idea or a philosophical concept. It is the fundamental law by which all things come into existence. Everything you experience in the outer world is a direct reflection of the inner world of your imagination. Whether you are aware of it or not, You are constantly shaping your reality with the images, assumptions, and beliefs that occupy your mind. The world around you is nothing more than the projection of your own consciousness, brought to life by the power of imagination. Look around at everything that exists: the buildings, the cities, the technology, the art, the institutions of society. None of these things appeared out of nowhere. Every single one of them first existed as an idea in someone's mind before it became a tangible reality. The great inventors, artists, and visionaries throughout history understood this truth. Whether consciously or unconsciously, they saw a world that did not yet exist, held onto that vision, and persisted in it until it took form in the physical world. Imagination was the force that brought their dreams into reality, just as it is the force that shapes your own life. The truth is that you are always imagining. Whether deliberately or passively, the conditions of your life are not the result of random chance, but the outpicturing of the thoughts and feelings you have entertained over time. If you believe yourself to be unlucky, struggling, or unworthy, those assumptions will manifest in your experience. If you believe yourself to be successful, prosperous, and loved, then your world will reflect those beliefs. The law is absolute. Your imagination creates your reality. This is why it is essential to become aware of the thoughts you entertain daily. Many people live unconsciously, allowing fear, doubt, and limitation to dominate their minds. They look at their current circumstances and react to them, never realizing that the circumstances themselves are the result of past imaginal activity. They continue to focus on what is rather than on what could be, and in doing so, they perpetuate the same conditions over and over again. The cycle continues because they have not yet grasped the truth that the outer world is simply a mirror of the inner world. But the moment you understand that imagination is the creative power, you become the master of your destiny. You no longer accept life as something happening to you. You recognize that life is happening through you. Your world is the result of your inner conversations, your assumptions, and the images you hold in your mind. Change these and your outer world must change accordingly. This is not wishful thinking, this is an immutable law. You do not need to struggle or force things to happen. Creation is finished. Everything you desire already exists in the infinite possibilities of consciousness. Your role is not to make it happen, but to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and allow it to externalize in its own perfect way. The moment you persist in an assumption, it begins to solidify into fact. This is why Neville Goddard taught, "Dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled." When you do, the world must rearrange itself to reflect your new state of being. When you begin to deliberately use your imagination, life transforms. You no longer react to appearances, because you know that appearances are simply the shadow of past imaginings. You do not allow circumstances to dictate your inner state, for you now understand that your inner state is what determines circumstances. You become a conscious creator, deliberately shaping your experience through the power of assumption. This is the great secret hidden in plain sight. Imagination is God in action. The same power that created the universe is alive within you, waiting to be directed. The only question is, what are you imagining? For whether you do so consciously or unconsciously, you are always creating. Assume the best, and life will reflect it back to you. Imagine wisely, for imagination creates reality. The law of assumption is the key to unlocking the limitless power of your imagination. It is not what you want or wish for that manifests in your life, but what you assume to be true. Your assumptions, whether conscious or unconscious, create the reality you experience. This is the great secret that governs all creation. Whatever you consistently believe and accept as fact in your mind will externalize itself in the world around you. Most people live under the illusion that reality is fixed, that circumstances are beyond their control, and that they must struggle and fight to change their conditions. They believe that life is something that happens to them rather than through them. But the truth is that your world is simply a reflection of your inner state. It is not separate from you, but molded by the assumptions you hold about yourself and the world. If you assume yourself to be wealthy, even if there is no physical evidence of wealth at the moment, that assumption will harden into fact. If you assume yourself to be loved, even if your current experience suggests otherwise, that assumption will manifest in your relationships. This is why Neville Goddard taught that assumption is the key to creation. The great secret of manifestation is to embody the feeling of already having your desire, to assume it as your present reality, and to persist in that assumption until it becomes your experience. This is not a passive belief. It is an active, living awareness that what you desire is already yours. It requires unwavering faith, a complete acceptance that what you have imagined is as real as the world you see with your physical eyes. Every great achievement, every transformation, every success story is the result of someone assuming a new state of being. There are countless examples of individuals who have changed their lives by shifting their assumptions. The struggling artist who begins to assume themselves to be successful finds doors opening and opportunities appearing. The individual who has lived in poverty but assumes themselves to be prosperous begins to attract financial abundance in ways they never imagined. The lonely person who assumes they are deeply loved and cherished finds their relationships transformed. The reason assumption works so powerfully is that it changes your state of consciousness. When you assume something to be true, you begin to think, feel, and act in harmony with that assumption. The world then reflects this new state back to you. You no longer beg for your desires or hope they will happen. You know they are already yours. And because you know, you move through life with confidence and expectation. The universe responds by rearranging itself to match your new state of being. This law is impersonal. It does not judge what you assume. It simply brings to life whatever you persist in believing. If you assume limitation, you will experience limitation. If you assume success, you will experience success. The law does not distinguish between good or bad assumptions. It simply manifests whatever you accept as true. This is why it is so important to become aware of what you are assuming on a daily basis. Many people unknowingly assume failure, struggle, and lack, reinforcing those experiences in their lives. They do not realize that they are the operant power, that they have the ability to assume something different and completely transform their circumstances. To use the law of assumption deliberately, you must first identify what you truly desire. Once you have a clear vision, you must assume that it is already yours. Feel the reality of it. See yourself living in that desired state and persist in that assumption regardless of what your physical senses tell you. The key is to remain faithful to your vision, even when external evidence suggests otherwise. You must not waver, for the world is simply catching up to your new state of consciousness. Creation is finished. Everything you could ever desire already exists in the realm of imagination. Your only task is to align yourself with the reality you want to experience by assuming it as already true. There is no need to force things to happen, no need to struggle or fight against circumstances. Simply assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Persist in that assumption and watch as your world reshapes itself to reflect your inner state. This is the great secret of life. You do not attract what you want. You manifest what you assume to be true. Living from the end is the secret to conscious creation. It is not enough to simply wish for a better life or to hope that your desires will manifest. You must mentally occupy the state of already having what you seek. Instead of looking at your desires as something distant or separate from you, you must assume that they are already a present reality. This is the essence of creation. Not longing for something in the future, but knowing and feeling as if it is already yours now. The mistake most people make is that they think in terms of their desires instead of from their desires. They see themselves as separate from what they want, and in doing so keep their dreams at a distance. They continue to reaffirm their current limitations by focusing on what they lack, rather than stepping into the reality of already possessing their desire. But the great secret is that imagination, the state you assume to be true in your mind, is the state that will externalize in your world. Neville Goddard taught that imagination is the only reality. When you close your eyes and assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are entering a state of consciousness that is just as real, if not more real, than the physical world. Everything that exists first began as an imaginal act. When you live from the end, you are not simply visualizing a future event. You are shifting into a new state of being. You are claiming the reality you desire as already yours. And because consciousness is the only true cause, the world must conform to that assumption. To live from the end means to think, feel, and act as the person you desire to be. It means to assume the state of already having, rather than waiting for proof before believing. Many people make the mistake of looking to their external circumstances for confirmation before they allow themselves to believe in their new reality. But the outer world is only a reflection of the inner world, and it will not change until you first assume the new state within. You must believe in the unseen and remain faithful to your assumption, no matter what physical evidence may suggest. This is why Neville emphasized the importance of feeling. It is not enough to merely repeat affirmations or visualize passively. You must embody the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Ask yourself, if my desire were already realized, how would I feel? How would I think? How would I carry myself? Then assume that state now. Walk in the confidence of one who already has what they desire. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of already possessing it. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between imagination and reality. It simply accepts what you impress upon it as true. When you persist in the assumption of already being the person you wish to be, the outer world must reflect that state back to you. There are countless stories of people who have transformed their lives by living from the end. The struggling artist, who assumes themselves to be successful, eventually finds themselves in circumstances that confirm their assumption. The person who has been lonely but assumes they are deeply loved begins to attract relationships that reflect that belief. The individual who once struggled financially but assumes wealth as their present reality sees their financial situation shift in ways they could not have planned. These transformations occur because they have stepped into a new state of consciousness, and the world has no choice but to reflect that new state. The challenge for many is that they waver in their assumption. They assume their wish fulfilled momentarily, but then fall back into doubt and fear when they do not see immediate results. But the key is persistence. You must remain faithful to your vision, even when reality seems unchanged. The delay between assumption and manifestation is simply the world adjusting to your new state of being. If you hold firm in your assumption and refuse to accept anything less, your world will be forced to conform. Creation is already finished. Every possibility, every outcome you could ever desire already exists in the infinite realm of imagination. Your task is not to create something from nothing, but to shift into the state where your desire is already realized. When you live from the end, you align yourself with the reality you wish to experience, and it must inevitably externalize. The world is a mirror reflecting your inner state. Assume the best, persist in that assumption, and watch as your life transforms. You are the operant power. There is no external force deciding your fate, no higher authority shaping your life against your will. You alone determine your experiences through the assumptions you hold and the imagination you exercise. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly creating your reality. The conditions of your life are not the result of luck, destiny, or circumstance, but are the manifestations of your dominant state of consciousness. The power to change your world lies within you, and it has always been yours to use. Most people go through life believing that they are at the mercy of external events. They think success, happiness, and love are things that happen to them if they are fortunate enough. They look to the world outside of them and react to it, never realizing that their reactions themselves are shaping their future experiences. The truth is that the world does not create your inner state creates the world. The moment you understand this, you take back the power you have unknowingly given away. You recognize that you are not a passive participant in life, but the creator of your own destiny. Neville Goddard taught that imagination is the one and only reality. Everything in the physical world is merely a shadow, cast by the inner world of imagination. What you assume to be true within yourself must externalize in your life. This is not a theory, but an unbreakable law of consciousness. If you persist in an assumption, whether positive or negative, it must become your experience. This is why it is so important to become conscious of the thoughts and beliefs you hold. If you assume lack, limitation, or struggle, your world will reflect those assumptions. If you assume abundance, success, and love, your world will mirror those realities instead. The great mistake people make is believing that something outside of them must change before they can feel different within. They think that once they have more money, they will feel secure, or once they find love, they will feel complete. But the opposite is true. You must first assume the inner state of having what you desire before it can appear in your external world. The outer world is simply a reflection of your inner consciousness. Nothing happens by chance. Everything is drawn to you according to the state you occupy. The realization that you are the operant power is both liberating and challenging. It means that you no longer have an excuse to blame circumstances, other people, or fate for your life's conditions. You must take full responsibility for your reality. This can be difficult for some because it requires them to face the truth that they have been unconsciously creating their own struggles. But once this truth is accepted, it becomes the greatest freedom. If you have created undesirable conditions, you also have the power to create new and better ones. The key to deliberately shaping your life is to take control of your imagination. Instead of allowing it to run on autopilot filled with doubts and fears, you must consciously direct it toward the life you wish to experience. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Occupy the state of being the person you want to be. Persist in that assumption regardless of what your senses tell you. The world may seem unchanged at first, but if you remain faithful to your new state, reality will inevitably conform. It is essential to recognize that no one else can create for you. No one else has the power to shape your life unless you allow them to influence your assumptions. You are the sole authority in your world. If you wait for conditions to change before changing your state of mind, you will remain stuck. But the moment you decide to assume a new reality, the outer world must begin to shift. You do not need permission to create the life you want. You do not need external validation. You already possess everything you need within you. The only question is, will you exercise this power consciously, or will you continue to let unconscious assumptions dictate your life? The choice is yours, for you are the operant power. What you assume to be true about yourself and your world is what you will experience. Assume wisely, persist in your vision, and watch as life reshapes itself to reflect your inner conviction. Persistence is the bridge between imagination and reality. It is not enough to simply assume a new state once and hope that it manifests. The key to success in conscious creation is unwavering faith in the reality of your assumption, no matter what external appearances may suggest. Most people give up too soon, allowing doubt, fear, and discouragement to take over. They look at their current circumstances and, seeing no immediate change, they revert to their old patterns of thought. But creation does not work this way. Reality is fluid, shaped by the assumptions you hold with conviction, and it conforms to those who persist in their vision without wavering. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are planting a seed in the unseen realm of consciousness. Just as a seed takes time to grow into a tree, your assumptions require time to take root and manifest in physical reality. The mistake most people make is that they dig up their seed before it has had a chance to sprout. They assume their desire, but when they do not see instant results, they return to doubt, worry, and fear, undoing their own creative work. The key is to persist, to hold on to your assumption until it hardens into fact. Neville Goddard often compared persistence to faithfulness. To persist is to remain loyal to your vision, regardless of circumstances. It means refusing to accept anything less than the fulfillment of your desire. When challenges arise, as they inevitably will, persistence keeps you anchored in your assumption rather than being swayed by appearances. The world may temporarily contradict your vision, but if you persist, the world must eventually conform. This is the law. There are countless examples of individuals who have transformed their lives through persistence. The struggling writer who holds firm to the assumption of being a successful author eventually sees their work published and recognized. The person who has been sick but persists in assuming perfect health experiences a transformation in their body. The individual who once faced financial hardship but remains steadfast in the assumption of abundance sees their financial situation shift. The common thread in all these cases is persistence, an unshakable belief in the unseen reality until it becomes seen. One of the greatest tests of persistence is maintaining faith when the physical world seems unchanged. Many people assume their desire momentarily, but then look for immediate confirmation in the external world. When they do not see instant proof, they become discouraged and revert to their old way of thinking. But this is like planting a seed and then uprooting it daily to check if it has grown. The process of manifestation requires trust. Just because something is not visible yet does not mean it is not on its way. Your persistence ensures that your assumption takes full form in the world of matter. It is also important to understand that persistence does not mean struggle or force. You are not trying to make something happen through effort. You are simply remaining faithful to your desired state of being. This is not about working harder in the physical world. It is about holding the feeling of already having what you desire in your imagination and refusing to entertain any thought of failure. The battle is not in the outer world. It is within your own mind. Your only task is to stay committed to your assumption, to refuse to accept any reality that contradicts it, and to trust in the process of creation. The world may test you. You may experience moments of doubt, frustration, and impatience. But these are only opportunities to reaffirm your assumption, to deepen your faith in the unseen. The more you persist, the more natural your assumption becomes, until it is no longer an effort but a state of being. At this point, manifestation is inevitable. Reality must shift to match your inner conviction, because that is the law of consciousness. Everything you desire is already yours the moment you assume it. The only thing that determines whether it manifests is your persistence. Will you hold firm to your vision, or will you give in to appearances? Will you trust in the power of imagination, or will you allow doubt to dictate your fate? The choice is yours. But know this: if you persist, if you remain unwavering in your assumption, the world will have no choice but to conform to your belief. This is the great secret. Persistence is the power that turns the unseen into the seen. Persist, and you will inevitably witness your imagination become your reality. The power to create your reality lies within you. Through imagination, assumption, and persistence, you shape the world around you. God, the creative force, is not separate from you. It operates through your consciousness. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption, reality must conform. The world is a mirror reflecting your inner state, and your only task is to remain faithful to your vision, regardless of external circumstances. You are the operant power. No one else determines your destiny. The only limits you experience are those you accept. When you fully embrace your creative ability, you step into a life of limitless possibilities. Persist in the reality you desire, knowing it is already yours. The unseen will become seen, and your imagination will unfold as your lived experience. Believe, persist, and watch as your world transforms to reflect the power within you.